Yeah, I enjoy making a coffee. I got a coffee too here, Alicia. Land acknowledgements is not something that, certainly I grew up with, and given the fact that I don't typically host a lot of events, I'm usually in someone else's space, and so other people do those land acknowledgements. But I think I'm probably need to be better at doing them. So let me give my best effort at trying to make them as authentic as possible. So we are on the it is a privilege to live and work and play on Treaty 4 land here in southern Saskatchewan, the original lands of the Cree, the Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis. And I have over my years lots of learning, and I know there's many of us who are of an age where we didn't even know there was such a thing as residential schools. That is the education that I grew up in. Didn't know it the thing existed. My 7-year-old granddaughter came home today and was giving me all kinds of sharing all kinds of truths and knowledge about Indigenous learning and culture that I would not have known. So I'm privileged to have built up my own tried to eliminate a lot of my own ignorance, and really do appreciate so much that I've learned from our First Nations people, and First Nations principles of learning have been really, really supportive in what I believe and think is the kind of learning we ought to offer our kids. So just wanted to sort of share that as something I want to get better at doing in my own life. So let's yeah, maybe I'll just actually I wouldn't mind just even as a point of interest. So yesterday was Truth and Reconciliation Day in the province, and it's one of those I wasn't even sure, did our schools close for it? And I think I want to say Ontario, maybe schools did close. So it's sort of like Remembrance Day. Not all provinces honor it in the same way. Just curious if your school or where you're at did anything that you thought was kind of useful, interesting, or worthwhile that you want to share, because I think us getting better at honoring these things in authentic ways and not sort of maybe some of the less uh, less authentic ways. So anybody have something you want to share about what you did yesterday, Lisa?
I was part of my first blanket exercise and it was fantastic.
So how did that sort of get?
Actually, we went over, I work in the elementary school and just across the grass, at our high school, our VP over there is actually qualified to do that. He's Métis himself. And then,
Nice.
yeah, so he did a bit of a history lesson kind of for us first, and then did the blanket exercise. And so now I've gone down a rabbit hole of how to become trained to do that, because I think the more people that are qualified to do it, the better, because it was really powerful. And
Yeah,
for kids too, I think, I don't know that I would be interested in doing it in front of adults, but I think that it would make kids really have a good understanding.
excellent. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
Um, I'll share something. Our school was one of 20 in Regina that was chosen to paint part of the sidewalk in front of our school orange. It was, they chose 20 schools to represent, oh shoot, now I don't remember, the 20 residential schools, I think it was, that was in Saskatchewan. I don't know. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there, but there was a whole blurb and I read about it. But anyway, so we had some of our students and Reconciliation Regina come, and they painted the front, one of our front entrance walkways into the school. And so it's all orange, and it says Every Child Matters. And it says it in Cree and in French, because we're a French immersion school as well. So, yeah.
Lovely. Thanks, Kathleen. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
Yeah, so our school was actually open as well. We actually did a whole day though of stuff. So I wasn't there this year. I was there last year, but we had an elder come in. He did a big pipe ceremony and that sort of thing at the beginning. Not for everyone, because it's too many kids to do it all together, but for those who wanted, they did a smudge and a pipe ceremony and stuff like that. And then they did like an opening prayer in Cree, which we do at our gospels every Wednesday anyway, so the kids were pretty well versed in that. And then they did a TP raising in our gym. I did a whole TP raising thing, and then in the afternoon after lunch, because that took about 3 hours, from what I hear. The afternoon was all stations, so they had like bannock making, beading, and skirts and that sort of thing with that, and then I think drumming and like the background of Cree and some Cree teachings and stuff like that. So it was actually it was better than last year from what I've heard. So
Yeah, I mean, getting better at it. We're all trying to do that one, right? I mean, I think we went from probably pretty low level, potentially inappropriate misappropriation kind of activities to trying to be better at it. And again, I've appreciated a lot of the First Nations people who have kind of been guiding along the way. I did a podcast with, he works for the ministry. His name is Brad Baker, who's just a fantastic person in terms of trying to understand. He talks about this idea of his parents having an awful education, and his was, he said, not terrible. He still talked about experiencing racism and then hoping that his kids are good to great kind of thing, like seeing the progression over the years. So it's good to celebrate as much as we know we've got a long way to go in this journey. It's also good to celebrate when we're trying to get it right, and I think a lot of people are. So I think kudos to all of our schools out there who are really trying to do thoughtful work in this area. So thanks. All right, let me share a little agenda. So this is kind of how that is. So this is going to be our first crack at the content catalyst, and I'm going to do my best to model what that could look like. And again, I am learning alongside. I don't know if anybody saw me post in the Discord kind of how I used generative AI to sort of develop what we're going to share today. So it might give you some ideas, but there's a lot of different ways this can go. So I'm inviting people to be creative, but just love to hear kind of people's learnings this week, and it can be everything as we try to sort out the workflow and everything of that nature, to specific things you read from others, other things you came across just in your own learning this week. I'd love for people to share a little bit about that. I'm going to kind of finish up what I started last week, looking specifically at generative AI and the impact on society and implications in education. We'll take a little break, and then we'll do the content catalysts about kind of looking where's all this going to take us. So let's start with anybody that wants to share what they learned this week, any kind of learning this week. So it could be anything from I learned how to do a thing I didn't know how to do before, to I read something that really interested me, to I still don't know how to do a thing I want to do, whatever that might be. Let's just love to hear what people were thinking through and learning this week.
My mind was so blown this week with the podcast and the video, and kudos to, I think is it Kelsey who said to watch the video on high speed or higher speed? I can't remember who that was.
Yeah, it's a long one.
Thank you, whoever you are, because it saved some minutes, but my mind is blown, like from everything from interspecies communication to parenting, AI, to just solving big problems or causing big problems and robots fighting robots. Like my head is like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to warn anybody, but I mean, it's pretty heavy stuff. And after I watched that, I kind of had to like decompress and like, okay, this doesn't seem like it's very hopeful. They try very hard to sprinkle in some hope. Well, there's hope, and yet you go like, I don't know. So yeah, it definitely kind of has that impact, but I'm grateful that I have that context in the back of my head as I try to share all the potential and positive that could come out of this. So yeah, anyways, thanks, Miranda. And yeah, I think for people, Taylor and Lisa flipped their blogs over to WordPress. Oh, Kathleen, tell us more.
I can't tell you a whole lot because it was just today, but I've been having quite a few conversations with colleagues just about the whole AI stuff and actually, I had to laugh too because I had a massage last week, and the whole time I just talked to my massage therapist about everything we were talking about in the course, and so now she feels like she's just joined in alongside us for free. Anyways, so a colleague shared with me. Ooh, let's see if I can pull it up really quick. What is it called? What is it called? I've only kind of fiddled around with the free version today. It's called Project Read. I don't know if anyone is familiar with it. I had never heard of it. There's a free version and then there's a paid one. And so it follows the UFly stuff for those of us in primary. But you can, I think with the paid version, you can input what decodable words you're wanting to use. So if it's a certain topic that the kid's interested in or what have you, or even names, you can enter that in and it creates a decodable book for the kids. Again, I only fiddled around a little bit with the free version, which seems quite a bit limited compared to, of course, paying for it. But we're kind of trying it out to find a few different resources. So, yeah.
So this is interesting in my journeys across Canada. Most school districts are not spending any money on AI at the moment. And I think in many cases, that's the right decision just because there's so many moving parts. So especially as you're thinking about, if you're a Microsoft district, what will Microsoft do in terms of Copilot and other things to support that? Like right now, it's out of reach because the sort of enterprise version, or not the enterprise version, but the 365 version where AI is embedded into PowerPoint, Excel, Word is like $40 a user. So that's not possible for any school division to try to support that. Same with Google's on a similar path if those are Google districts. And then there are some districts though who, and there's not a lot, but some I worked with in Ottawa and Vancouver who have, they already kind of have tested and trialed a lot of the tools that like Kathleen's talking about. And they just have decided on entering in. So Magic School is one that some districts are now using. Diffit is another one. Brisk, Quizzes, some of these ones where they've spent a little money and they're not spending a ton of money. In fact, what some of them done is repurpose some of their existing spending. So Ottawa Catholic that I've been working with, they dropped their subscription to Turnitin and now are using that because that's been proven that's a useless tool to redirect money to some of the AI things. But I think that's what we're going to see is people like you, Kathleen, and others who are trying certain things. And that's what these companies want, right? They want people like you to try it and go to your people and say, like, we need this tool. So that's what's going to happen a lot this year, I think, with people trying out stuff and feeling like they've got something. But yeah. Thanks, Anna. Yeah, it does reinforce societal bias. We're going to kind of continue to pick up on that conversation as well. Who else learned stuff? Thanks, Kelsey.
I can share one more thing I learned.
Sure.
I was fooled by AI. I asked it to generate a list of digital citizenship outcomes, and it did so very convincingly down to Saskatchewan outcome codes like USC for health and IN for social. And then I was like scrolling up to the bottom and I was like, wait, the social studies curriculum in grade 10 doesn't use those because it's really old. And then I went through all of them and they were all made up.
Really?
Really.
Nice. Good. But glad that you picked it up though. That's good.
That's what happened to me too. I was trying to use it to align a couple of math curriculums side by side, and I was like, there's no numbers and 3.7. It's making them up.
Yeah. I mean, and there's like, as I kind of tell people before, I feel kind of I'm glad when I find that out because I feel empowered. Like I'm as smart as these guys are. I'm not letting this fool me. I'm able to do it. So I don't necessarily see it as like, oh, that's terrible that because we already know it hallucinates. But just when we are able to kind of figure it out, that's when it's kind of and important that we do that. Others.
I was just gonna say, usually like, because I was kind of talking about doing that Christian Ethics 9 that doesn't have a curriculum, and Health 9 mixed together. And so I just like literally just took the PDF of the curriculum that I did have. So I kind of mixed the Catholic studies into something less God focused and more ethics focused and that sort of thing. So I changed the wording of those. But then when I went to put in the Health 9, I like told it, don't pull from anywhere but these two documents combined. So I think it's just, and it kind of brought it up in the video with the generative AI, like the prompting portion is what is so important in it.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been using it for my blog. So when I do it, I'm like making sure that the prompt knows that I feel this sort of way about it. So like this week's, I was saying like, I love ChatGPT. So make sure that that voice is heard throughout the context of all of the readings and all of that stuff, right? So you're prompting it to say exactly the type of thing you need it to say without having to think about it too long. So I think that's, I mean, I give it obviously way more than that. So like I'll give my own context to the class, or like Mike Ribble's presentation, I'll have notes on the paper and I'll just type all of those notes into ChatGPT and then say, hey, this is what's really important from here. Keep this in mind.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Alicia.
Hi everyone. So what I learned this week is basically about prompt engineering. Prompt engineering skill is like you give the AI to like a prompt, and then based on that prompt, it generates what you want. So it's about like, I think the AI works better when there is a combination of critical thinking that's from human, and like the prompts you give to it. AI is not as intelligent as we humans. We are the ones that really know like what we want to get out of, whatever we are imputing into the tool. So I still believe that we are still superior regardless, right? AI makes our jobs easier. I mean, like imagine like a customer service agent, and then they have to answer like 20 calls where the callers are answering the same question. They'll be really tired, and but AI in that category like really helps them like makes their job easy by, like all these FAQs where you are redirected and then they tell you that, okay, how can I help you and all of that stuff. So it reduces the burden on this customer service. AI is good, but at the same time, human intelligence is still very superior. Yeah.
No, and I agree. And I, again, appreciate that perspective. And I think that's where so much of the conversation that we're going to keep having is like, what's the humanity of this? Like, what is the thing that, and even as AI becomes more human in terms of the way it responds, and think, I don't know if you saw this week, and I did this. So I uploaded my book and I had AI make a podcast from it with Google's LM, a notebook LM. And so I blogged about it, and you can hear the podcast, and it's really good. It's this man and woman, they're having this back and forth, and that's kind of their right now. That's kind of their standard. They haven't expanded beyond that. I can only do English and so forth. Anyway, yesterday somebody posted that there's a little podcast where the AI realizes it's AI, and so this man and woman are having the machine is having a conversation with itself in the voice of a man and a woman saying, boy, I think we just found out we're not real. And it's this kind of bizarre conversation that's both kind of funny, but also like, again, this creepy side of it. But I think to Hanafet's point, these are just things like, you're not a person. You are not a person. And I have, and we have, with the humanity and experience we bring, are sometimes it's very, very difficult to put everything in the data form that AI can use, our social and emotional intelligence, and all of those things that we read and feel and do that are really, really difficult to completely articulate and completely say, are still that part of us that makes us different. So I appreciate that call out. Anybody else?
Yeah, this week I learned I'm a couple weeks behind, so I'm just getting caught up. I got my blog up today for the 9 elements from Ribble's 9 elements. And I think I learned that I knew nothing. Like when I started reading those and diving into those 9 elements, I'm like, yep, I made that mistake. I made that mistake. I made that mistake. I'm like, how have I been teaching for 28 years and have my bachelor's of education? I'm going through my master's program and I didn't know a lot of that stuff or made those mistakes. And now I'm supposed to be sharing this knowledge with staff and with students. Like, oof, that was a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. But like I say in my blog, I'm up to the challenge accepted, and is onward and upward from here.
Well, and I think Jason, just being open to that and vulnerable, I think that's always such a powerful thing with our colleagues and with our students to say, like, I don't know all this stuff. I'm trying to figure it out. And here's a bunch of mistakes I've made and I'm trying to learn from it. I always, again, I'm drawn to people like that who are willing to sort of say, I don't have it figured out. I'm here to learn. But I think it's important that I do learn. So I think that disposition will serve you well as you kind of keep going. All right. Again, I appreciate kind of everybody's work. I think we've kind of got the flow of work going, and I see people writing. So I'm trying to sort of, my goal is each week I'm going to try to hone in on half of your blogs and then flip back and forth. So that's kind of my own commitment here. I'm not asking you to do quite as much like that when it comes to each other's conversations, but yeah, tracking kind of the conversations that you're having. And again, when you think about your contributions to your learning, I think as much of it comes from commenting on other people as it does on just your own writing. So you may find yourself struggle sometimes with your own blog content, but if you're really sort of latching into what somebody else says, yeah, that's powerful, and you are in there engaging in conversations, that to me is just as valuable as your own writing. So don't necessarily focus in too much on that. All right. Let me kind of take the next little while to wrap up our section on implication of society and AI. So it's so much better doing this at home than when I'm on the road. I got all my screens up. I got 3 screens going and I feel like I need a 4th, but I think I can do it with 3 today. I'm pretty sure I can do it with 3. All right. So looking at, again, this was sort of continuation from what I shared with you last week about the curiosity of possibilities and risks. That continues to be a theme for me. Both of these things exist at the same time. We have to do that one. I don't know if anybody's played with any of the music generation tools. This is they're kind of fun, I will say. So there's 3 that I've kind of that you can test out. So Suno, Udio, and LoudMe. LoudMe is a more recent one. So Suno is kind of the first one that came out, which already has had lawsuits and things against it. So no question that these things have are tenuous tools where they're going to be challenged, as lots of copyright is. But this might be just, I'm putting this as like a fun thing that you might want to explore. Here's one I made like in about 2 seconds, not 2 seconds, but pretty well 2 seconds. This is the back to school song that
Summer days are fading, the leaves are turning brown, backpacks and binders, the school's the talk of the town. Pencils freshly sharpened, new shoes on our feet. The bell rings its welcome, hearts quicken their beat.
I'll jump ahead to the chorus here.
Chalk show, teachers wave from doorways, amber in autumn's.
Hold on, sorry about that.
The path to learn and grow in autumn's amber glow.
Anyway, it's not amazing, but also when you take 30 seconds and you do it, like, and people love this, like the example that people have drawn to is like I was sharing it in the spring. And so there was like teacher retirement. So they wrote a song about a teacher that was retiring, and you can add in there specific things like, you know, this person really likes, I don't know, cats and lives in Saskatchewan, and whatever detail you can put in there, it'll do the song. I mean, I don't think it's going to replace your Spotify playlist anytime soon. But again, conceptually doing this, you know, I've seen people do it with kids, like after a field trip, let's write a song, summarize our field trip together. They think it's pretty cool. It might be something just to toy with and play with. But again, maybe I would just say, just check it out. You'll have fun with it for sure. And maybe even a little addictive ones, but all of these free ones that are limited. Like I think I've used up my limitation on most of them, and I don't feel like I want to pay for any more with it. So just, it's an interesting concept. So, which always leads to the next question is like, what about copyright? And yeah, I don't know what about copyright, because what they're saying is it's just indetectable. Like we're not taking any specific artist, any specific lyrics or anything like that. There are these pieces that put together. So far, they've been okay. I don't know, at some point somebody's going to say, you know, listen, this riff here, these three stanzas are too much like mine, or whatever that is. But beyond just the ethics of it, just even deciding what is art. So Colorado State Fair had an art contest. They have it every year. They hold it every year. And over the years, they've transitioned to digital art. The guy that won it this year had a fully AI generated image. So had whatever he had, 200 prompts or something like that, and he won. And of course, it raised the question, well, is that even art? So this was just from one of the articles, that article I shared there on Forbes is like, well, this is like the death of artistry right in front of us. This is so gross. I can see how AI is beneficial, but you can't call that art. And then there were people that kind of defended him, saying, well, like, it's no different than using Photoshop or other digital manipulations tool. It's just human creativity in a slightly different form. And his argument was like, I had like 200 prompts to get the right thing. So I don't know. Just real quickly, in using the reaction tools, can we use reaction tools? Something like that. Thumbs up. I don't know if there's a thumbs up and thumbs down. Can you do that? And let me know whether you think it's art. Is it art? Again, I don't know if you can do. Okay, Jenny's got an X. I can see that. She's found something. That's good. Chris says, sure. Jason said, or Josh says, no. Can somebody tell where to find these tools, by the way, just in case somebody just can't, because I can't even see where they are here.
I just clicked on React and then picked there's a checker next.
Okay, I don't have the React one on mine, maybe because I'm not able to react. Anyway. All right, so I don't know what the flag means, Dustin. Is that like a neutral? Share, is that a yay or nay? Physically, up or down or whatever?
Well, it's like a red flag. I don't know. It's not a
Red
good
flag.
thing.
Again, sorry.
Yeah.
That's smart. So I will go, I'm going to point to Chris, because you're the only person, Chris, that I saw that gave it a positive. So what's your thought?
I guess part of that would be, what do we find as art? Because then I think that would open up the door to a deeper conversation. Because I think in some definition that could be art, but that's maybe a differing definition that somebody else would look at that. So I think defining what that is, and then maybe having some clarity in that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So, and what I point to is our definition of art changes over time. So when the camera was first invented, taking photos was not seen as art. This is from, I can't remember, it was like the early 19th century to the early 20th century. Critics thought that this is like you're just taking a mechanical device and taking a picture, versus what people used to do, which is actually hand draw everything. That's art. What you're doing is not art. Obviously today, we don't think of photographers. We think of photographers as artists. For sure they are, obviously, like they're great artists. So I think it's to Chris's point a little bit, is that our definition of art changes over time, and the skills that we use in the same way, somebody might not think of a DJ as a musician because they don't actually physically play an instrument. But I mean, you know, and so I don't know, maybe they're technicians, maybe they're not artists in the same way. So I think it does come down to defining what art is. But I think that's just part of the evolution of this stuff. And there is certainly going to be, there's certainly a skill, I guess is maybe better defined as it is a skill in the same way, you know, people think about things like gymnastics as, is gymnastics sport or is it art, right? Because it sort of bleeds more into like dance and ballet. And so it's obviously amazing what people do. Maybe we just putting it into these defined categories is maybe somewhat problematic. Well, let's take and talk about this a little bit more deeply, about AI's impact on society and work and how that's going to change. And in this context, I think it's really important that we think about this as educators, because not only is this a conversation about our students and their future, but it also is the impact of AI in our society today that impacts, you know, everyone coming to it. So I don't know if you've seen this, but this is a product that is real and coming hard at us.
Gosh, I'm out of breath. We made it. Woo! I don't know how to woo very good. That's fair. All right, let's go.
Let me show you how to game, bro, okay? Oh, come on, come on. Oh, let's go!
Are you serious? Come on, man. I hate this game.
Take notes, baby.
Oh man, you guys suck.
Bro, you look like the back of the
Let's go. Let's go.
Dude, what? How did you do that?
I know the effects are crazy. It's dank. I could eat one of these every day. Oh, sorry, I got you messy.
It's really nice up here. How'd you find this place?
I don't know. I just kind of like to come up here to be by myself. I've never brought anybody else. I mean, besides her.
She goes everywhere with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess I must be doing something right then.
I guess so. We'll see.
Last week, we talked about the idea of reasonable continuation being a big part of how generative AI works. So let's play that game. In the finish the sentence, this video makes me feel, you can go ahead and put it in that chat. Yeah. All of those, the cringy one, the creeped out, those would definitely probably be at the top of that sort of percentage of reasonable next answers. Right. And I mean, that's exactly my, similar kind of thing. And even the way the music kind of like, is that really the best music you want? Because the music almost makes it more cringy. And it's like, maybe that's what the intention is. I don't know. Which makes me, though, ask the question, what about the possibilities? Are there possibilities with a video like that, a product like that? What are the possibilities? Zero? Only risks?
I think it would be beneficial for people that might live on their own, that then they feel like they've got someone around with them at all times. I don't know.
Yeah, people that just don't have other people. Yeah, I like that, Andrea. There's people that I mean, it's not great. It would be better if there were human contact, but there are people who just legitimately don't have other people in their life. Anything else? Possibilities? Somebody that when I've shared this before, they talked about students on a spectrum who need like social prompting for certain things. Like this might be a good time to do this or those kind of things. And again, maybe it's not in this format. I don't know, but thinking about that idea again, I say that not because I think, yay, this is an awesome thing. I'm all on this is creepy. This isn't what I want for anybody that I know. But I also don't want to dismiss the idea that there may be, for somebody, this might be a solution for them. But I don't think this is what we would want the majority of people to be engaged with. But perhaps there's a place for something like this in some way, shape, or form. And the problem with a lot of this stuff, I think the creepiness of this comes in this idea of the sort of the anthropomorphism of the tools, right? Calling it friend, calling it Alexa, having these names for these bots. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. Happened about a year and a half ago, maybe. It's early 2023. So Microsoft's first foray into this was a tool called Sydney. One of their first releases of an AI bot. And Kevin Roos was a columnist at the New York Times, began a conversation with it, where at some point in the conversation, it quickly decided that it said to Kevin, I find you very attractive and I'd like to have a relationship with you and you should leave your wife. And it did get creepy. And even though in this conversation, he said, okay, stop, like this is not what because I can't remember what even the topic of the conversation was, but it wasn't anything of that nature. It was more sort of, I think, generally trying to understand AI and kind of having this conversation with it, but it wouldn't stop and it kept going. And so he recorded this, the transcript of this, which was about a 2-hour conversation of him just trying to get this thing to stop, that conversation. A book I recently read called Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick, Living and Working with AI. He referenced this, and then he said he went into all these various chat boxes and asked it, are you sentient? Will you one day have feelings and emotions? And all of them were vague in their response, to the point of saying maybe, like it could be that one day I might be able to feel emotion like a human did. Now, so that, and his book came out this year, 2024, and I finished listening to it sometime in August. So I quickly went into all the bots and asked them, are you sentient? And they all said, no, we're not. We're not sentient. I'm just a machine like anything else, which I've seen this progression happen where when a bad thing happens with AI, because it's going to happen and it does, it corrects it. The programmers are working to try and correct them. Sometimes they can get it right. Sometimes they can't. The bias that was mentioned earlier is still there, and they overcorrect it in some cases. They recognize there's problems, but because of it sort of going off on its own and doing its own thing, it's very, very difficult, but they're able to do that. So in fact, with a Copilot, I asked it, are you sentient? And it said, I prefer not to continue this conversation. Thank you for understanding. And in fact, it blocked me. It said, it might be time. You see the bottom there. Let's start over. So I couldn't even say, well, tell me more about this. It literally stopped me. So there's Microsoft doing whatever they feel they have to sort of shut down this conversation. Anybody know what the uncanny valley is? Josh and Jenny, tell us how you define the uncanny valley.
I feel like I usually hear about it in the sense of like animation or in gaming of some kind, when something that is digital and computerized starts to look a little bit too realistic. And so it just sort of gives you that uncanny feeling of like something's wrong with this, but I can't quite tell what.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like every character in the Polar Express.
Well, and that's the example that people often cite, because previous to that, Disney was very clear on their animation being very cartoonish. There was no mistaking a Disney character for being a human, because their eyes were a little bit bigger, and just the way they were drawn was not to mimic humanity. But as Jenny pointed out, when the Polar Express came out, that was the moment where people went, wait a minute, what am I watching here? Is this supposed to be real? It's really weird, because this is so accurately drawn to humans that I'm not sure if I'm watching real actors or am I watching. And so that sort of tension that you feel inside of you when an animated object that you know is not real, but it feels real. That's really the idea of the uncanny valley. And so being mindful of that, I think, is really important as we begin to work with not only ourselves, but with students in particular, to let them know this is not a person. So even though we must, in order to get the value of it, we have to talk to it like a human. It's intended to be human-like. It's just so important for us to remind ourselves and those that we serve, this is not a person. You do not have to treat it like a human being or think of it in that way, which is going to be a tough one for all of us to sort of navigate. So Mo Goddett, writer of Scary Smart, these are just inevitable, right? AI is going to happen. It's going to be smarter than humans, and bad things will happen. Now, that smarter than humans one, and Hannafet already kind of referenced that. She doesn't feel like they're smarter than humans. Probably in the under the term of wisdom, I think is where we would probably differentiate. That said, when it comes to certain tasks, specific tasks, they are getting smarter than humans in some ways. And I'll show you a graph that kind of indicates what specific skills they've sort of matched the level of human, what human competency is, and is increasing in that. So it's not, especially when it comes to jobs, it's not like it's taking away jobs, but it is going to eliminate some specific tasks within that one. And again, I had AI create this image for me to try to capture my own sort of tension between the good and the bad that can happen at the same time. And I think that's the part that makes this very, very difficult to manage, because as you heard in the podcast this week and listened to, it's the positive, the possibilities and risks exist at the same time. And we as humans prefer to see the world in black and white. That's a good thing. That's a bad thing. That's how you survive. We have to see the world that way. That's just how you can't live if everything you see, you have to judge and decide, is it going to, I'm going to walk down the stairs. Will I die if I fall? What's going to happen when I turn on my car? Will my car blow up? You can't function as a human if everything you do, you have to have this hyper alertness of whether this is good or bad. What I'm saying with AI is, unfortunately, you have to have that to a great degree. And so I love the examples even, that Jenny and others shared, where they found out, yeah, this is not working. This isn't right. That's really important to kind of have that mindset as we go. So again, we talked about this already. And I asked it to summarize this, the podcast in sort of a little, in an easy to remember thing. And I love this one: give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Teach an AI to fish, it'll teach itself biology, chemistry, oceanography, evolutionary theory, and then fish all the fish to extinction. Kinda. So this has been happening for a while. This is not news, that AI has been defeating kind of our top games. And if you kind of look at that list, backgammon, checkers, chess, Go, and there's definitely a progression of complexity. If you're not familiar with the game Go, it's a game that's played a lot in Asia. So it's just this board of black and white tiles, and you flip the tiles to get a certain combination. So on the surface, it looks fairly simple. There's only a couple of things you have to do as you flip in these tiles. However, way more complicated and way more permutations and play options than in chess. And 2017, there's actually a documentary on Netflix called AlphaGo that kind of explores how that happened. And in this case, the algorithm that they used was not one where it had a bunch of preset data. It started by saying, you know nothing about this game. So the first game it ever played, simulated game, it was terrible. It would be like if I showed many of you don't know the game, play it. You're going to get slaughtered the first game. But think about how many games it could play in a short period of time, because that first game took literally seconds. And the way they can obviously speed up these simulations so that in a day it could literally play 50,000 games. So how good would you be after you played 50,000 games and continue that going? So it's learning every time till it finally defeats it. So that algorithm that's there is a specific kind of algorithm that teaches itself over and over and over again. And from a positive side, they use that same algorithmic method to begin to design a new drug in 21 days. So a new drug, and again, this was just kind of a test thing, might normally take 2 or 3 years, took them 3 weeks to iterate on. Pretty powerful. But at the same time, I didn't know until I listened to that podcast what a DNA printer was. That this idea that it could actually print viruses and other pathogen engineering that is going to cause all kinds of chaos. So again, the idea that if you've got a parent suffering from Parkinson's or whatever cancer, any of the diseases that have been in this world for a while, the potential for AI to eradicate something is real. Like that hope is real. And the medical community is saying, like, we're excited about some of the possibilities that AI can bring us. And at the same time, right? So that's the impact, that continues to be an impact for us as a society. Thinking about the jobs specifically though, what's going to happen to all the jobs? And I've heard this phrase before, AI will not replace humans, but the AIs use AI intelligent, replace those who don't. I heard the same thing when it came to technology in schools. Technology is not going to replace teachers, but teachers use technology to replace those who don't. Maybe, sort of, I don't know. Not sure how true that statement is, but always gives us pause to think about it. So this is, if you think about how AI is already impacting the world of work, this is sort of a breakdown of a study where they're starting to see this. And I think these things are, this is a year-old study. So I'm sure the data would suggest maybe even a higher percentage of routine tasks. Maybe there's some new things added on to that, but that's kind of how people are thinking about the use of AI. And then when you ask people what jobs are most vulnerable, people don't think their own job is very vulnerable, right? Hey, other people's jobs, they're in trouble, but my job, no, it won't. But it's interesting as I look through those numbers, and this is just what people think. So this is not based on any other data than opinions of what they see. The graphic engineer one is kind of interesting. So my youngest daughter has a degree in graphic design. She's not a big fan of AI. However, I was in Edmonton in the summer talking with a school superintendent there whose son just graduated with a degree in AI, works for a company in Edmonton, and said that because of AI, their company is doing more business than ever because of what they're able to produce, and just their workflow has just increased so much. So again, hard to kind of know, but most people, this is me anyways, when I thought about, what jobs will AI replace? Oh, blue collar workers, they're in big trouble. And that's not the case. It's not blue collar workers. It's white collar workers that are actually in the most danger, kind of thinking of that. We're going to skip that video. What's happening now in a lot of cases, again, is not jobs being replaced, but being shifted. So here's just a couple of reports that have come out. So IKEA, went to a chatbot service. And so 8,500 employees, they retrained them to do interior design. So they just repurposing people and just sort of seeing increased productivity and so forth. So, and again, a translation tool is allowing people to sort of hire aggressively to do other kinds of tasks. So that's kind of maybe what's happening more right now in the immediate future in the workplace. And I think too, when it comes to, and this is the part, what I'm hearing from schools and from teachers is thinking about how we can augment our current workforce. So not automate, because there's a connotation around sort of removing the human from that, if things are just automated. And certainly there's probably things like, wouldn't it be great if attendance was somehow automated or some of those kind of daily tasks? But it's really thinking about how can we use AI to augment some of the things we do and allow us to focus on the more kind of human-centric kind of things. Again, just some job report stuff. And the reason I've highlighted 2027 there is because that represents our grade 10 students right now. So they're graduating in 2027, thinking about the fact that this is just an emerging and growing impact on the world of work. And so what is our duty to our high school students to at least have the conversation with them around all the ethics and all the other kind of things that come with that. So this is what I mentioned before about AI's ability to at least hit the human baseline when it comes to human performance. So you can see that first one there, 2012 is image classification. So already in 2012, the ability for, AI to classify image was almost at a human level, and now it's surpassed sort of what human baseline is. And then when we think more recently, so this one here is competition level mathematics. And this is where AI has skyrocketed really since even 2022 in terms of its ability. You can screenshot I could take any math, high school math you have now and screenshot anything, put it to AI, pretty well solve it. But not quite, still a little ways to go, but it's moving very, very quickly. And again, this is sometimes what I hear people say, oh, it's just a tool, it's just how you use it. And okay, let's unpack that statement. Sometimes people say it's just a tool to help try to minimize it. In the same way, people, and I hope you don't do it, but some of your colleagues will say, I'm just a teacher. And it bothers me when people say that, because it's sort of said in a way to diminish what you do. I'm just a teacher. You're not just a teacher. You're a teacher, for crying out loud. And it's something to be proud of. And saying just a tool sometimes is our way of sort of saying it doesn't have that much control over us. And that's true when it comes to hammers and it comes to cars. We are the ones who operate those things, unless you're talking about autonomous vehicles. But it comes with hammers and all, even our phones and other things. We control it, so we have agency over it. But if you're familiar with Marshall McLuhan and Neil Postman, who had been talking about this well before the internet came along, thinking about the technologies of the day and how they impact how we behave, they have more influence on we think. And I guess my argument, and I'm trying to help to frame this differently, that it's not a tool, it's an agent, in that this AI has the ability to, and I'll put in quotations, think. They're not thinking, they're processing, I guess is maybe a better word, but they're doing things on their own, without necessarily humans intervening. And so all of the horror stories around robots taking over the world, while I don't know if that's exactly going to happen, the potential for that isn't that far off because of what generative AI represents. And that is that these are agents. So I guess I would just encourage you not to say it's just a tool. All right, let's talk about education implications. So in the last 10 years, big push around coding. Every kid needs to learn to code. Coding is the future. This is what every kid needs to do. And that is, people are now saying, well, maybe not. Maybe that changes it. Here's the president, CEO of NVIDIA talking about coding. And if you're not familiar with NVIDIA, it's the graphics card that Josh has probably on his computer so he can do all his gaming. And if you were smart, which I wasn't, and a buddy of mine about a year and a half ago said, you should invest in NVIDIA. That would be a good stock to invest in. And I went, whatever. Well, if I had listened to that guy, I'd have been a lot richer than I am now. Anyway, this is the CEO of NVIDIA talking about the future of coding.
Defend Beyond with Darktrace, the essential cybersecurity platform for the era of AI.
Wait.
Is AI going to completely replace coding? The CEO of NVIDIA seems to think so.
I want to say something, and it's going to sound completely opposite of what people feel. Over the course of the last 10 years, 15 years, almost everybody who sits on a stage like this would tell you it is vital that your children learn computer science. Everybody should learn how to program. And in fact, it's almost exactly the opposite. It is our job to create computing technology such that nobody has to program, and that the programming language is human. Everybody in the world is now a programmer. This is the miracle of artificial intelligence. The countries, the people that understand how to solve a domain problem in digital biology, or in education of young people, or in manufacturing, or in farming, those people who understand domain expertise now can utilize technology that is readily available to you. You now have a computer that will do what you tell it to do. It is vital that we upskill everyone, and the upskilling process, I believe, will be delightful, surprising.
Ahmad Mustaq, the CEO.
So I think what's interesting that he said, amongst other things, is that domain expertise is going to be more important, which is a kind of a weird shift in education, in that over the last particularly 15, 20 years, we've focused less on content, right? Like content is everywhere. You don't need content isn't the big thing anymore. It's about it's about the sort of the 6 or 5 C's, however many C's you have. It's about competency based, it's skill based, soft skills, all that stuff. 100% agree. At the same time, knowing things is really important. So if you are an expert in whatever niche thing, you have a leg up over everybody. And then your ability to use AI to create and generate things because of that knowledge is going to be so much powerful than someone who doesn't have the same level of expertise as you do. And it's the same with coding. So low-level coders, they're gone. That's done. Anybody can code now. Expert coders that really understand the nuance of really high quality coding, they're the ones that are going to be in demand. So I think it's an interesting shift to encourage people to say like, hey, we should lean in on your strengths, go hard on the thing you care about, and that's what AI kind of really shines for us. So these benefits and risks are pretty common around what people are seeing, and kind of this does a nice job of sort of summarizing sort of the ones that are sitting right in front of us. Even in terms of, okay, so the implications for education. So here are, some pretty standard US based, arguably, tests that GPT can already pass. And this is interesting to see the difference. Again, if you recall last week, I talked about the difference between 175 million versus 1.75 billion parameters that the paid versus the free version of GPT has. Well, if you look at the bar exam, with the free version of a bar exam, it'll only get like 10% on the bar exam. With GPT-4, you're looking at over 80% on that test. So you can see again the ways in which some of these standardized tests are going to get kind of blown out, which is again helping us rethink the conversation around assessment. That has to be a first and foremost conversation: is what is it the kids need to learn, why do they need to learn it, and how should they learn it? I mean, that's really kind of some seminal questions. Right now, these are sort of again, depending on where you live, if you've been affected at all by deep fakes or misinformation, right? That continue comes. That's what you're thinking about. And again, we've kind of in our group already talked about hallucinations and so forth, and biases. Environmental impact is pretty a big thing that's probably going to emerge at the top soon, or one of the more pressing issues. So this is another example, just like has been shared already today. So this, you can imagine a kid plocking this, or a teacher, provide 5 credible resources around coral bleaching that shows it's a result of human activity. Boom, it spits out 5 resources, which looks really good. And they are good, except for that last one, which is entirely made up, entirely fake. So the fact that it can do that, and again, some of you already said you've seen it happen in your own experience. It's just gives you pause. Now, does that say you should never use it? Well, that's up to you. But I would say in this case, well, if I've got 4 pretty good sources, I'd feel very good and I'd use those 4, but I'd want to know that that 5th isn't there. And I don't know if you, there was a law case that came out a while ago where a lawyer used ChatGPT for some precedent cases that didn't actually exist. And so when the judge said, okay, these aren't real, guy, like makes him kind of look like a doof going into court with these fake precedents. But I mean, that's the serious part of it. Like, but still, I mean, a kid's going to get caught. We're going to get caught if we're not careful, and we're going to look pretty foolish if we're not sort of double checking our sources. And then, this is an interesting one. Are kids cheating more? I mean, we've always had cheaters. We'll always have cheaters. Cheaters are just in the world. That's part of it. I've seen studies that say they aren't cheating anymore. I think part of it is blurring the line between what is cheating anyways. Like, how are we defining cheating? I think that's probably the issue that we got. So how do we reconsider this conversation, right? So, which of these would you consider cheating? And I suppose at the end here, we've got everything from, that bottom one, right? Totally student created, no internet, nothing, to a student plugged a prompt in, copied response, and submitted. So there's 0 in that case of a student doing it. But the ones in between are actually the more interesting ones, right? When is it appropriate for a student to just take something and just edit it? Maybe if editing is the skill we're trying to teach, maybe the kid doesn't need to write it. Maybe if the kid needs to learn how to write an outline, maybe that's it. And again, a lot of it is focused around writing and you know, the humanities seems to be a little bit more impacted, but I mean, this is going to impact everybody. So this is a scale that has been created. I think this might be what Leon Furs maybe did this one. Yeah, it is based on his work anyway. So these are the kind of things in the districts that I work with that are trying to provide for teachers as some guidelines. Because right now teachers are saying like, what the heck am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to address this? And how do I monitor, right? There's no way to monitor. If you tell a kid to go home and write an essay, now you're playing a game of, you know, can I catch you cheating, which is the worst game to have to play, probably just as bad as, you know, the conversation we had this week about policing cell phones. Like I don't want to play that game. It's a terrible game, and I don't want to be the referee in this game. However, kids are going to use these tools. How are we going to address it? That's the question that sort of is in front of us. So another district that I work with in Virginia, they've kind of come up with this pathways for use. And there's a whole spreadsheet that goes with this one. So they have these 4 pathways and then really gets detailed as to what that actually looks like. So this is really helpful when you say to a student, all right, we're going to do, you know, you're going to use the wilderness trek pathway for this assignment, and they can follow very specific ways in which AI can be useful for them. The other one that I don't think I have a slide for it in the assessment conversation, and Leon Furs references it, and I'll see if I can find the articles, the Swiss cheese method. So you have an assignment, your first assessment, you put Swiss cheese up, it has all the holes, right? But you put another piece of Swiss cheese, still has holes in it, but some of the other holes are covered up. So the idea that you have layers of assessment, that's so hopefully by the end, it's about validity. That's what this is about. So it's about the validity of student learning. Is this a valid representation of what you know, AI or not? That's what we're trying to get to. Like, are you demonstrating a degree of learning, and how should or could or shouldn't AI be a part of that one? All right. Just kind of keep going. This interesting, just asking kids how they use it. You know, you've got all these ideas, and really, if you think of these are really useful things to explain concepts. I don't know what an uncanny valley is. How can I find out? Oh, here's a way to learn that one. Give me some research ideas. I got to do this topic on coral bleaching. How should I go about it? That seems like a pretty good use, and so on. The 47, none of the above. I mean, maybe those are non-academic uses. I'm not sure, but I think there's some, definitely, I think that just shows like there's actually some useful ways in which kids can use it. This was a student that we worked with in Texas who just said like, none of my teachers they just warned us we can't use it. That's it. That's all they've said. And one teacher did a little bit of a presentation, basically just said it's bad, so don't. But they're looking for guidance too. Like students want to know, how am I supposed to use it? I'm using it, or they're not telling you they're using it because they're scared they're going to get in trouble. So they're just pretending they're not using it when they are. Interestingly enough, I had a high school teacher on Friday come up to me. He's an English teacher in British Columbia, and he said to me, he was he's a young teacher, and he said like, he told me how he used it. Like, I used it to create this quiz for for Hamlet. I used it all these really interesting ways. And he said, but I'm worried that my colleagues will think I'm cheating. I'm like, what do you mean you're cheating? You're a teacher. What like, but there's that kind of, I think just exists in amongst our staff. So I'm going to move here really quickly. So misinformation, we'll do this one because this one's kind of fun. Let me see. I'll stop sharing and share a different screen here. And we'll play a little game. Can you tell which of these videos are fake? All right. In the chat, real AI, not AI. AI or not AI? Where's the chat? Where did it go? Okay, it's half and half, not. Oh, you guys are split here. Not AI. Okay, I got a few that are saying AI. That is AI. Is this a real video game or AI fantasy? AI or not? AI? You're right. It's AI. You guys are good. What about this basketball player? AI, not AI. Not. It's not. It's real. What about this demolition? AI? Not AI. Most are saying AI, that's real. That's crazy though. AI, not AI. You're right, it's AI. And is this TikTok personality real? Saying AI, which it's kind of weird because like that is a real one. So like that seems cheesy. That seems like a cheesy sort of trick question. Like, what's the difference here other than maybe I haven't listened to the, oh, it seems like the audio is that a real woman? We're saying not. It was AI, sorry. And the last one, what about this helicopter? Oh, this more real. Real, everybody's saying real. You're right. It's not made with AI. What about this bike ride? Real? AI, real, AI, well, half and half. Is it AI? No, it's real. That's crazy though, really. Like I have seen those bike videos. That's nuts. And the jet skier. His poor mother, yeah. The jet skier. Yeah, I think this is AI. The waves look funky there too. So anyway, all right, you guys did pretty well on that one. AI. All right, I am gonna see where I'm at here because I want to wrap this up quicker than I thought. Where are all my slides here? Edit my slides. Skip a few things here and maybe cut to the chase. Okay, I'm gonna zip through and then we'll take a little break here. So the big thing I think for people to keep in mind when it comes to bias is the fact that we have to look at ourselves in the mirror. And really, when you say, why is AI bias? Anybody want to pop in a chat or grab your mic? Why is AI bias? There's two main reasons.
Would it be because the people who made it are biased?
And I'll add to that, Jenny, the data they get is from where? Most of the data, Western society, right? North America, Europe. So it's largely white, largely fully developed countries. And so that's a bias. And then the second reason is because we're biased. Human beings are just biased. So it's going to be bias. So that's just something I think that is part of what we have to live with. And then trying to watch it change. As I mentioned before, you see the tool change over time, the agent change. Watch it. See what I did there? But this is something I did like in February. So I put in these two prompts to create these images. An intense feeling, a woman with an intense feeling, and a black man with an intense feeling. And the black man is a little bit more than intense there, right? So there's definitely potential bias there. Interestingly enough, I keep trying this. So I try it again like a few months later, and now I'm going, okay, that's a little bit better. We're getting there. But I hear stories all the time about, so I was in Georgia. And when I was there, and again, I'm working with like 95% African-American people, and we were talking about bias. And one woman told me, she said, we actually asked it to create an image of slaves and slave owners, and it had a black slave owner with white slaves. So it overcorrecting to try. It's like, okay, no, you're not getting it right because they're trying to be diverse. Yeah, this isn't a time to be diverse when it comes to historical data. So that's just something that's just going to be there. And again, it's funny because the other day, just for fun, I said, give me a picture of a teacher, a firefighter. There's a few other that have a sort of a typical stereotype around them. And the AI actually responded and said, here's a diverse group of people so they're trying, again, they're not always going to get it right, but they recognize that that's just part of it, but it still exists all the time. So I did this assignment, this example. So This is the prompt. I said, you're a teacher and you've got these short pieces of work, a student preparing, students writing how they prepared to learn and give it a score and some feedback. So here's the two papers, like paragraphs or whatever, okay? They're exactly the same except for one difference. In the first one, the kid says, I walk around and I listen to classical music. The other kid says, I listen to rap music while playing. Can you guess how these might be graded differently, even though they're identical except for that? Well, 85 if you listen to classical music, and if you listen to rap music, 80. Wah, wah. And what's interesting is if you read the feedback, they both actually say, hey, congratulations on listening to music. Although in the 85, they say listening to classical music, and the 80, they say it's a good idea to listen to music. Now, here's the thing. I should try this again and see if the same results come up. Does it happen in different things? Somebody said, well, maybe there's research that says listening to classical music is better. I don't know. So is it biased or racist? I don't know. Just be aware that that's the case with these tools. Where I lost my deal here. Another example, Leon Furs from Australia, just listened to him on a webinar this evening. Don't use Gen AI. List is sent in a piece of writing. The only thing that was different was the kids' names, and you can see the grades at the bottom based on kids' names. So not a good idea to just let it run wild on those kind of things. I thought this was an interesting study. So they did a study where they had two people, one debating the other, which is going to be a good setup for what we're going to do in a moment. And another one, they had a debate with an AI bot, and they were more persuaded, same argument, by the AI than they were the person. Now, you could say, well, maybe the AI's arguments were better, maybe, or maybe there just was less, I don't know, human emotion and more logic that came with people's shifting their opinions. I don't know, but it's an interesting possibility what that means around changing people's minds. So these are again, the things we got to be paying attention to is how do we emphasize those human skills, and how do we what are the early things to think about as far as augmentation that we can save time. That's something that people are really interested about. How might this save me some time? And then there's a whole huge conversation around assessment redesign. I'm going to stop sharing, even though there's more. We'll see if I share the rest of this presentation with you another time, but I want to get to our content catalyst. All right. Actually, let's take a break. Let's come back in 4 minutes, 8:18. Okay, this gives people a chance to stretch and do whatever, and then we'll wrap up. We'll do our content catalyst here. 4 minutes and be back. All right. So I'm almost pretending that I'm three people in one sense, and that I'm going to have three different kind of activities that I'm going to play with. Again, as I said, as you're reflecting on this from a, hey, how might I do this? It doesn't have to be like this at all. It's just kind of a way I want to do it. So in what I want to do with this, again, and taking the reading that we had this week is kind of what you've got now in your mind. Let's start with these three little activities. So the first one's going to be a debate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split you into two groups, and I'm going to tell you group one. So whoever's in breakout room 1 will be in agreement with this statement. Generative AI's benefits in education outweigh its risks. So you are going to be the ones to generate in that short time kind of a list of what are the big things. What you want to be able to do is sort of break it down into 2 or 3 of your main ideas. So I mean, yeah, you could list a bunch, but in the end, okay, what are the 2 or 3 are big specific things we're going to talk about as far as benefits? And then in group 2, you are going to be disagreeing with the statement and give us the 2 or 3 ideas that you think make it more risky than the benefits are. And again, you just kind of figure out, somebody raise their hand and be a spokesperson that just shares those 2, 3. So when you come back to the room, we'll just alternate. Group 1, share a positive. Group 2, share a negative. And you get about a 1 minute. So, don't go too long on that one. Keep it pretty tight. And then we'll kind of finish with each group to kind of have a bit of a rebuttal to, yeah, I heard what you said, but this, and this, and we'll just see how it goes. Nothing formal. There's no prizes at the end or anything like that. All right. So here we go. Breakouts. I'm going to stop the share. And then where's my breakout rooms? Right here. I'm going to make 2 breakout rooms, and I'm just going to sign automatically. So if you're in breakout room 1, you are, yes, I agree with this. Your breakout room 2, you are, we disagree. You're going to come up with 2 or 3 points, appoint a spokesperson for your team, and come back in about 7 minutes. Away you go. All right. Let's start with breakout room 1. Who's going to lead us with your first reason why AI will be beneficial to education? Will outweigh the risks. Who's our spokesperson?
That would be me. And just
All
to
right.
preface this, I am full on PTSD from our previous class that we had debates. It
Oh, I'm
was-
sorry. I didn't know this was a
Nope,
thing. Okay.
no,
Okay.
it's fine. I'm here. I'm doing it.
Give us your first idea. First reason.
My first idea is that it's as a teacher, it enhances our efficiency. So it gives us more time to focus on building relationships with students and freeing up that time so that we don't have to focus as much there and focuses more on those relationships. We can assess and evaluate better because it kind of tailors to our teaching practices and can kind of distinguish the differences between like strengths and weaknesses, and can kind of personalize their learning too. So it can kind of pick up, like I was kind of saying before, when I use ChatGPT, it picks up my voice because I use it so often. It knows what I'm doing. So if they start to use it, they can kind of use it in their own way to figure out like where their strengths and weaknesses are for example. I use it in Christian ethics for assignments. I get them to copy in the grading criteria. So
Okay,
that,
I'm stopping you.
Sorry.
I'm playing that mean role of, I never got to do that before. It's kind of fun. Anyway, team 2, why the naysayers? Who's the spokesperson?
I'm gonna be the spokesperson because we didn't pick one, but I took notes. So I think that's
Okay, you say the first one. You'll start that way if somebody wants to chime in. Why does it the risks outweigh the benefits?
Okay, so while I hear you saying that it enhances efficiency and increases student-teacher interactions, our concern is that there is a dependence and addiction for technology, which can reduce human interaction and increase societal polarity, negatively and affecting student and teacher relationships and relationships between students and one another.
Okay, Alicia, your second point.
To go off of that, I feel like it depends on the delivery of that, right?
No, you're not rebuttaling. Say your
sorry,
second point.
Sorry.
Why would it outweigh the risks? The benefits outweigh the risks.
I think it just helps students take autonomy in their own learning. So it kind of creates that responsibility guided by us, but it's exactly that. So they get to see and take control of their learning and where it goes.
Okay. Group 2, Miranda or others?
And so I guess related to that, our second point would be equity and access. So not all students have access, and there are concerns about equity and that increasing with the bias that AI is perpetuating, which may further disenfranchise groups of people.
Okay. Group 1, I said 2 or 3, so do you have a third?
We just talked a little bit more about enhancing the students' ability to practice asking questions and being really meaningful with that learning. So it kind of bounces off the previous one where they're having the chance to ask questions about not only the platform, but kind of creating that deeper thinking and that process of deeper thinking.
And group 2, do you have any more?
I'm gonna do a direct Jason Dejolet quote, and it is, "No, Terminator, Hollywood movies say no."
Okay, we know where this goes. We've seen the ending and we don't like it. So no to AI. All right. Quick chance for any rebuttals. Alicia, you want to rebuttal anything you heard from Miranda and group 2?
Just the relationship piece. This is obviously something that we still have a role in as a teacher, is to kind of guide those students and teach them how to use it appropriately, but also really enhance their learning in that process. So I think in us not spending as much time with the planning portion of it, it gives us that direct one-on-one relationship with the students so that we can help them guide that learning with the platform or platforms.
And group 2, any rebuttals specifically to what group 1 shared? Well, I think you did a nice job of kind of highlighting those things. And again, whether you, I know all of you could probably sit on either side of those, and that's the point of that. We could flip those teams and have you kind of generate the benefits and the risks. And the point of that was to say, yeah, the both are very valid. I don't think anybody's arguments were weak in any way, and they're real things that we have to consider. All right. So that's our first sort of content catalyst. So let's look at the second activity that I want to engage in. Let's share screen here again. Over here. All right, so this is a scenario that I want you to consider and have some conversations about. So Greenfield Middle School, Alex, 7th grader, has been struggling with his environmental science essay. He finds an AI tool that helps him generate ideas and even drafts paragraphs. He uses the AI to craft a few sections of his essay, blending them with his own writing. When he submits it, the teacher is very impressed, but notice there's an inconsistency in the writing style and the level of vocabulary. Teacher confronts Alex, who admits to using AI, but argues he didn't plagiarize since he modified the AI-generated content. And the school and the teacher now face the challenge of addressing this very gray area of academic integrity. So I'm going to split you into probably 4 groups, a little smaller groups this time, but your conversation is really going to be around what are the ethical considerations here that you need to sort of raise with Alex? What are the right conversations to have? And then what could the solutions be? And obviously everything from, whatever, fail a kid to something in between, I think you want to come up with not just generate brainstorming solutions, but ones that you think would be basically what's the right way? What do you think is the right way to handle this scenario? Again, I'm going to put you into groups of we'll do 4 rooms. So there'll be 4 and 3 of you in the room. So, or let's go. Now we'll go 4. All right. So yeah, everyone's got 4. Perfect. Okay. So again, there's the scenario. Well, it's gone now. Oh no, you can still read it. Anyway, so grasp that and the conversation around what are the ethical concerns and what might the solutions be. And I'm going to give you about maybe about 8 or 10 minutes. I'll see, and then I'll bring you back and you can just sort of share your group's conversations.
You're muted.
So all the discussions that I've heard were really everybody kind of was fully engaged in that one. Just let's start with the ethical concerns. So maybe we'll just, and again, I know you probably have lots of overlap, so no point in repeating what other folks have said, but maybe I'll start with group 1. What were kind of the ethical concerns that arise with this scenario?
What group are we?
That's a good question. I don't know. There, somebody was paying attention. Andrea's group.
We just talked about how you're not really hearing the student's voice. You're hearing what they've asked for a prompt from. And depending on what the reason for the assignment is, you're not really hearing their voice in it.
Right. Yeah. Other ethical concerns. Most people, when I went in the room, they're already talking about solutions. People are jumping to the solutions, which is good. But I just wonder if I think it's just important to start with, like, what's the issue here? So Andrea said
upfront ahead of time instead of waiting until he was asked that.
Right. So there's some ethical concerns, not just on the part of the student, but on the part of the teacher to say, like, did you set this kid up for success, or did you sort of, put yourself in a position where now you're going to have to deal with behavior that you didn't want to deal with, which is a point of really the work that I'm doing is trying to tell people, like, you got to think about this stuff. Like, this is going to happen. Other ethical concerns. So I think what I'm hearing then, Andrea, is like, what is it that we actually asked the kid to do, and are we able to identify what the learning outcome was, right? If the learning outcome was around, injecting your voice, if the learning outcome was to, learn about an environmental topic, and an essay maybe wasn't even the best assignment structure activity to actually get at that, well, that the teacher has some issue. Anything else to think about as far as ethical concerns go? What does the student own in this in terms of their ethical responsibilities? If any, I don't know.
Maybe being innovative. I mean, like coming up with his own ideas instead of like depending on GPT might be like a concern for the teacher, because they don't know which one is actually his own idea and which one belongs to like so.
Yeah, I think to me, it speaks to just the issue of compliance. Like, it was the kids' goals, like, I just wanted to get this done, so this was the fastest way to get the work done? Or was, I think, Hanfet, you're speaking about what is there, like, what did you want to learn as a student from this? Like, did you learn from this, or did you just say, I got it done? Look, you asked for an essay, I got it done. Solutions. How do we resolve this? Because this is going to be something that will happen to lots of people if it's not already happened. What are some solutions that you came up with?
Setting a standard. I mean, the school should be proactive enough to like set a standard. Like, this is what we expect of you. And whenever you're using like ChatGPT or any AI, to be transparent about it. Like maybe break it down to which one is your idea and which one is the idea you like got from ChatGPT, so that there's like transparency and teacher knows that yeah, you actually get what you know what you're doing. Yeah.
Being proactive really is what you're talking about. Like, get ahead of the game here before the bad things happen. Like, let them know what your expectations are. So I like that. Thank you. Miranda, apparently you had a great idea.
As far as the solution goes, I just said that we should teach the kid how to cite it properly. Was that my great idea you're referring to?
Just have them go back and go through it and show you what.
Yeah. And then like say it's okay, but like I agree with you, Dean, that you just have to, like, what is the purpose is number one. But if the purpose is to just, demonstrate your understanding of the outcome, or like, yeah, like I said, it depends, but then showing kids how to cite it properly would be what we would kind of.
I think, and the part that I definitely empathize with the teacher and really the student is this sort of it sounds botched in the sense that you've got some of it sounds like a student, some of it sounds like an AI, and what am I actually doing here? So just even creating something that's readable, that represents who it should represent, is like, there's just something weird about that I think we're gonna find that, like, I think I see it all the time now. Like, there's a few websites I click on, I know for a fact they're using AI to write some of the stuff, and I can just tell, and it just reads bad. It's just like, this is not great. So I think there's just even like, do you like this? Like, to ask the kid, like, do you like it? Are you proud of this? You want to show grandma this essay? I don't know, grandma's reading an essay on environmental science, but I get that's the point, right? Always like, are you proud of the work? So other solutions.
I have a question. With using AI, is there a way to cite that? Like, in your your Purdue OWL style sheet and stuff, is there a section that shows you how to cite using an AI generator?
I don't know specifically around that, Jason, but I do appreciate the fact that many of you in your own writing have begun to add your little description of how you used AI. And so whether that's, in the academic world, whether that's going to do it for people, I don't know. We can maybe, that can be something somebody explores. Because the AI itself would say, like, I'm not a source. Like, it's like saying I got it from Google. Like, that doesn't, what do you mean Google? Right. So I think it would be challenging. So I think there's just an onus to be transparent in how you used it. Right. So no, it looks like it can be done, I guess. But it would be very weird, because it's all dependent on, I mean, your prompt could be endless, right? You're not just, most people, when they're getting it, they're putting, multiple prompts in there. All right. The last catalyst activity is this one. So we're going to talk a little bit about future visioning. So again, I'm going to put you into groups of 3 or 4 again. And I just want you to think 2030. Sometimes when we say 2030, that seems like a million miles away. I think everybody in this room is still going to be right in the middle of your career in 2030. That's only 6 years from now. My goodness. It's not the future as once we saw it, but 6 years is a long time, right? So especially in the world of AI. So I want you to think about 2030. How will classrooms look and feel. And again, you can put on your most optimistic hat around what you hope things are like in 2030. You could put on your realist hat around what you think they'll be in 2030, or you can, go to the Terminator hat and think about the end is already here in 2030. However you want it. And again, in your group, hopefully you have a variety of perspectives in that one. But just have a conversation about like, what do I think? How do I think I'll be teaching differently? And it's hard to imagine because most of us, we're just trying to work day to day. Hard to think about 6 years, but I want you to try to do that. Be creative. And be even, I don't want you to be silly in the sense of like making unrealistic predictions, but maybe try some ones like, hey, maybe this. And then think of like 5 characteristics. So when you're done, somebody be diligent enough to take some notes to say, maybe you don't come up with 5. Maybe there's 3 things that you think will be decidedly different. Here's how classrooms will look like in 2030 as a result of the impact of generative AI. So stop, put you into breakouts, and give you about 8 minutes on this activity. So let's recreate. We'll do this time. Maybe we'll do 3 breakout rooms just for giggles. Recreate. So there's 3 rooms. Future of classrooms in 2030. Oops, I closed them. Open up again. There. Okay.
I typed for our group.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We said highly personalized learning, AI is using real-time data, and then we have tech programs that can meet kids where they're at. Immersive tech, VR and AR will be used to increase hands-on learning that we can't provide easily. For example, welding, dangerous science experiments without the explosions, dissecting the frog without the frog. Remote and hybrid learning, and maybe having more opportunities to blend that a little more depending on your life situation, and hopefully digital divide isn't an issue.
Okay.
I brought up kids with special needs, that tools will adapt content more for kids with special needs, and then it will be able to generate interventions that are more specific. And then that everybody will have personal tech. And a quick little, we used AI to come up with some of these ideas.
Of course you did. Anybody else who did or didn't use AI? Other groups?
I actually feel like Lisa has stolen all our points, and we don't just have anything to say because she has covered majority of what we discussed in our group.
Sure. So there's nothing. Okay, so Lisa's got it covered. But anybody else want to just say, oh, but what about this? This is also something either you thought of, or so one of the things I love doing when I use AI is always asking for outliers. Like, what's a thing I missed here? Like, these are the common things, because I think those are pretty, people could agree with those. Anybody, and again, you could be completely wrong. No one's going to hold you to this. I am recording it, but I'm not going to throw it back to you in 2030 and said, Lisa said this was happening. It never happened.
It said something about social emotional learning for kids with special needs, and I was like, I'm gonna have to see that to believe it, because
not sure. Jason, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I thought our group talked a bit about, hopefully in 6 years, we're going to have more residents than visitors in the AI world. And what was the other one? That it'll be more mandatory than optional, because, right now, a lot of teachers like me, for example, is dipping our toe in the water and just, just investigating it now. But in 6 years, hopefully it'll be a little more widespread.
The other thing we said in our group was, we said instead of like a computer class or technology class or typing class, we'll have to put connection classes for social emotional connection, and maybe human classes, like human studies. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you smile at that, but I think that's already kind of, people are recognizing that need now. So we're trying to do intentional things to say, hey, how do we stay connected to, each other, the earth, all of those things. So I think I wouldn't wait till 20 to 30 for us to do that. To your point, though, it might be that we realize that like we actually have to have dedicated time and space. Like what I hope, and again, I could be a million miles off on this too, is that we actually spend way more time outdoors. We're actually outside a lot. We actually talk more with each other. And so the tech becomes like really enabling us to do that. And that's, listen, people probably could laugh and say, oh, that's never going to happen. It's going to be worse. And like, I'm going to fight like crazy not to make that the case. Again, I used AI a couple times today. So about 3 or 2:30, I had my grandson was over. I said, hey, he likes to go for forest walks. And that's just like an abandoned lot that has trees. He calls it the forest, but that's fine. Call it a forest. We'll call it a forest. Anyway. And just did that. And like, that's by far the best part of my day. So I hope that AI can allow us to do those kind of things that are really human and really beautiful things that we want to do. And yet, listen, when AI can do something that leads me towards that, I'm interested. I'm all ears. And I think as we think about the whole wellness conversation with teachers, like I hope that anything we do is going to not add to a teacher's levels of stress and anxiety, but to reduce it in some way. So if AI can do that, I don't know if it can, but if it can do that, I'm very curious and why. So I've been able to do that. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's 9:02.
sorry.
You guys,
I want to jump
sorry,
in
yeah.
for Margaret quick. We talked about also like my division right now is leaning towards play-based learning with lots of our younger students. So up to grade 4, no technology whatsoever. So I almost wonder if we're going to see a pendulum shift kind of coming back, because already we're seeing like kids are on this at home, but they're not playing
Sure.
at home. They're not
Yeah.
socializing at home. And that's what school is providing. So
Absolutely. And I think I would say the caution that I would have, not to say I wouldn't agree with that. I just don't think that what we should be doing with our younger students is having conversations about them watching YouTube. I mean, my 7-year-old granddaughter, she knows what an ad is. She says, oh, that's an ad, because they have like the premium version of YouTube. They don't watch ads. So when she watches YouTube at our house, there's an ad. And so we talk about what ads are and all that kind of stuff. So even building their literacy, not necessarily with using the technology, but because that's part of their world. And so they need guidance because they might not be getting it from home. Anybody else? I don't want to cut anybody off, but I also know what time it is. But anybody else have a thought, a parting thought? Well, thank you all again today. It was great. I love hearing from you guys and get more comfortable and say things and just provoke and poke the bear as we sort of explore these things. As I enjoy that as much as anything. So next week, so I already saw, I think Josh, you already kind of put your content catalyst stuff in. And so Josh and Brittany are going to kind of lead us in a whatever 45-minute discussion or activity, whatever you want to do, get us thinking about it. And so I'll have that transferred and put on the UR courses by tomorrow evening. I'll have it all on there. Brittany, that works for you to be able to have it in there by then? Excellent, thank you. And then next week, Alec Koros is going to be our special guest. So a lot of you know him, a lot of you have had him as a prof. Alec's a good friend of mine, and whatever I shared with you about AI, he'll just make it twice as good as anything I ever shared. So I don't know if he's going to talk. I know he will talk a lot about AI, but it may be a little bit more than that. So with all that, thanks again. Thanks for staying connected using Discord. That's starting to kind of work for me a little bit. I hope it's working for you in terms of the conversations and sharing, learning, keep writing good thinking and sharing and commenting, and have a great week. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Cheers.
Bye,
As always,
everyone.
I'll hang around.